So, hello everyone. Good morning, good evening. Thank you very much for joining the call today. This is the day two of Oracle Fusion training. Today, we will be covering the Oracle Integration Cloud Gen 3 uh, demo. So, we will be going through, the uh, some key elements like what exactly an OIC is, and how does this really fit in the middleware game, right? Like what were the challenges in the past, and how this OIC is actually coming to the rescue, right? We will certainly be talking about a different OIC components like integrations, Visual Builder Cloud Services, and Process Cloud Services. We'll look at the various different OIC flavors, like basically different licensing options, what is going to come with what. And then I'll walk you through the high-level overview of the code's content, and I'll give you a quick demo on the application. Okay. Feel free to stop me if you have any questions. So let's get started. Okay. So, first of all, right, like why OIC? First of all, let's understand this, right? Like, um, before we talk about Oracle Integration Cloud, right? Let's understand a general terminology called integration, right? Like, why do we? What exactly an integration means, right? In a simple terms, if I want to put right, integration basically facilitates a communication uh, channel between two different applications, right? You have an application A and you have an application B. Certainly, you wanted to bring data from application A to B or vice versa. Certainly, these two applications are not directly compatible to each other to talk to each other directly. Certainly, there is a middleman is needed to which will understand the language of A and the language of B, so that the effective communication, the transfer of data happens between both the applications, right? That's where this integration comes into the picture, right? I'm trying to generalize here, right? Not trying to rub any framework or tool or a platform here. I'm just trying to generalize. Uh, I'm trying to speak in a very basic terms, right? For the people who are starting for the new, right? I'm sure the people who are from the on-premise background or any other application background, they have some idea about integrations, right? I mean, especially in the EBS world, when it comes to an integration, right? Like you, you generally think of a custom program, a concurrent job, internally calling a PL SQL package or a shell script or a Java program, right? Which basically does basically it's run at thousands and thousands of or hundreds of thousands of lines of code to execute a logic, like reading a file, putting data into a staging table, and then finally doing some validations and transformations and all this stuff, right? That's how the traditional integration world works, right? Right. One have to be very strong with certain programming languages, frameworks, depending on which area they are supporting or working in, right? If it is a full stack world, you have to be good with REST services, SOAP services, because at the end you are exposing all your business logic via URL, right? Like if you are if you were dealing with an EBS kind of a world, you definitely have to be good with SQL, PL SQL, shell scripting, right? All this stuff, right? To in order to write a logic, in order to write basically an integration. So, I mean, I'll take a use case here, since I'm speaking pretty generally here, right? If I take a use case, think like this, right? I'm sure every company you work with or willing to work for, right? Like have a HR system, right? Like So now there will be a HR system, there will be a finance system, right? So now there is some common data which has to be shared between the system. Now, one happy path use case is, right? Your HR system is also Oracle, your finance system is also Oracle. In that case, right, exchanging the data doesn't need a middleman, right? An integration won't be a necessary there because everything sits in the same application in the name of different modules. But think like a scenario where your HR system is a workday system. Okay, I hope you heard about a workday system, right? Like it's one of the leading vendor in the market alongside of Oracle HCM Cloud, right? So let's assume that a customer have workday as their HCM system and financials as your Oracle Cloud system. And it is important to sync your employee data from the workday system to the financial system for the sake of maintaining the approval hierarchies, approval groups, and all that stuff, right? Because for you to carry out any transactions in the financial system, any transactions means transactions like approving your purchase order, approving your invoice, approving your journal. You need people to do that, right? And that people's source is sitting in a different system. Obviously, you would need an integration in between, right? Right. So uh, just take right. So so basically, you have a source application, you have a target application, right? I was talking about Workday as a source application, Oracle, Fusion, Financials as your target application, right? So basically, you need to, you know, you have employees here, and you certainly wanted to sync the employees. So you need to basically sync the employees, right? So you certainly need a middleman, middleware, right? So basically, you need an integration. Basically, in the name of a middleware, you need an integration, which will do the job of understanding or fetching the data from the workday system and then uh, transforming this. So basically, in the integration, what we generally do, we validate the data, we transform the data, right? When I say validating the data, right? Let's say you are getting I mean, validations in the sense like, from the workday system, probably you're getting employee first name, last name. We are just ensuring that there were no, junk characters or symbols in the names, right? We can also ensure the date of birth field is not null. We can also ensure the joining, the start date is not null, right? We can also, I mean, we can do all these, validations, right? We can also do the additional derivations, right? Because the target system, see, nowhere in the world you will not always get what all the data elements which are needed for your target system. Hmm? Uh, uh, People who are, I mean, don't have any questions, kindly please go on mute. Okay, thank you. So, yeah, so basically the target system, right? I mean, may expect more data elements which are not originally coming from a source system, right? So, let's say there are certain departments and those kind of information is like a little differently set up in the target system with the different names, right? You always need to derive all of them, in the middleware platform, basically in the name of your integration, so that the data is ready to be accepted by the target system. And finally, you sync the information. Not only that, you can take another classic example. Let's say you have a SAP Ariba, the procurement system, right? Like where the purchase orders will be created. Whereas you have your Oracle procurement system, which is part of your ERP suite, right? So again, even here, you wanted to sync your data from source to target, like the purchase information has to be synced. So because for you to do the invoicing, right, especially the matching based invoicing, if the invoicing is happening in the financials, you need to bring the purchase orders and create in the Oracle procurement, right? Otherwise, you cannot basically do a matching, two-way, three-way matching in the Oracle Fusion Financial. So all in all, the bottom line is right. In an in an in an in a pre-OIC era, right? Like in the if I go back like 5-6 years back, right, before we have this kind of a middleware platform, you have to do a lot of coding basically. Okay, and I mean at the same time, the one biggest challenge is assume that in the older, I mean in the on-prem era, right? Um, to do this right, you need to make a connection first. How do you establish this, right? Forget about writing your validations and transformations in the integration, right? But before you do that, you need to establish a connection with the work there, right? Also, you need to establish a connection with your financial suite, right? So this is again a biggest challenge. I mean, like every vendor have their own connection protocols, right? So you need to, like when I say connecting, right? How generally a connections happen depending on how a vendor is exposing their data to us. It could be via web services, they might be exposing, right? It could be like, firing a SQL query and getting the data out of it. We never know. Depending on if it's an on-premise system, it works one way. If it's a cloud system, it works another way, right? The biggest challenge is, right, there is no standardization, there is no commonality, in terms of having your end-to-end, like, design consistent, or trying to have a consistent approach across all your integrations within the system, right? So that's one of the biggest challenge, but one have to really know that particular vendor's specific technological aspects in terms of how they are exposed, how they expose the data, so that you can basically consume it, uh, and then do your validations and transformations and all that stuff, right? So that was one of the biggest challenge. Understand? But now, coming back to the topic of today, right? This is where platforms like OIC, Oracle Integration Cloud, come into the rescue. So I mean, so basically, OIC is a modern low code or no code platform, which basically helps us to especially streamline, the end-to-end integration approach. Like when I say that, right, the challenges I was talking about, like, the connection, I mean, especially when dealing with various different third-party vendors, you don't need to really worry about, what API they got exposed, to what extent it will support my use case and all that stuff. It's simple. The Oracle made it very clear, and made we have I mean whole lot of adapters they made available for various different third party applications like SAP, like Workday. You take any vendor, I mean, most likely you will find a adapter. Even if you don't find a application specific adapter, you still can go ahead and deal with what we call technology adapters like REST and so. Right? The more we'll talk about adapters in some time, right? So the bottom line, right? Like, so all in all, OIC is certainly going to help us to overcome the integration challenges. Like, it doesn't matter, especially in the space of, there is a huge evolution happening in the AI space, right? Every enterprise application, some or the other way, they kind of embedding the AI capabilities. So the future is, I mean, uh, not trying to deviate from the topic, right? Knowing the RAGs, LLMs, and those stuffs are something which are important. And of course, that's a little different line of work, and different line of learning. But integrations play a huge role, because tomorrow you may have a requirement to integrate with an application which is having quite a high AI capabilities. So but it doesn't matter if you, even now you talk about AIs, right? I'm sure you might have heard about these terms, right? This model accepts 30 billion parameters. See, at the bottom, at the ground level, it's an API. Okay, so I mean, using these modern platforms like Oracle Integration Cloud, one uh, integrate with the pretty complex APIs and various different third-party systems, effortlessly, so that you can establish a connection, with just few clicks, and then quickly focus on designing your integration. Okay, so I mean, this slide basically talks about, on the CX side, we have various different what we call applications, like generally on the customer experience side, right? You generally tend to see Salesforce is a major player. It's pretty common that you most likely to see an integrations between Salesforce and Oracle order management, because Salesforce is a place where all the leads and opportunities and contracts and codes gets created. And once a code gets created, obviously as a part of business process, it all turns out into creating a sales order, against a customer purchase order in the order management system. So obviously the customer information, account information, the master data elements have to be synced between your supply chain management system and the Salesforce system, other than the transactions, like quotes getting converted into orders, right? So similarly, like the example I have told, I mean, if you consider an example of HCM, right? Like it's common that the core HR system doesn't really deal with payroll as a whole, and most of the companies opt to go for various different payroll vendors like ADP. In India we have different other vendors, right? So the whole point is you need to transfer all your employee timesheets, or your payroll related information to the ADP, so that ADP can process your paychecks. So like that, there are quite a lot, like if you talk about SCM side, you need to deal with a lot of warehouse related requirements, which deals with IoT and blockchain. So the bottom line is, right, uh, I mean, it's scary now sitting here and thinking. I mean, if you want to think that, okay, if you keep the OIC from an equation, take out the OIC for a minute, right? It's really scary with this evolving technological landscape. One have to really learn a lot about all these APIs and various different elements, to integrate everything from the scratch. Now, basically, OIC makes life easy of the developer to hide all that third-party systems complexity, and giving you a very nice UI, simply to focus on what is my endpoint, what is my business object, or what is my specific functionality, and what is my authentication protocol. That's all. So we really don't need to really deal with anything else, because if you think, like, if OIC is not there, right, you need to write your own wrapper outside of that initiating the connection. In the older world, we used to do like this, right? I can't just see now. You see the tools like Postman, right? Like what exactly Postman is doing? It is facility. It's a client basically. It is helping you to call a web service, right? It's helping you to call a web service like that. But that's for testing purposes. But you can't. I mean, if you are thinking of a clean end-to-end executable code, right? You need to choose a specific programming language and write a wrapper, so that that wrapper will do the job of initiating a connection. and then based on your properties, whatever you have configured, that is something going to use at the runtime and initiate the connection, and then your actual transformations and validations comes into the picture. So all that things were like eliminated. All those challenges kind of addressed with the help of integration cloud. Right. So I think this basically slide talks about I think a specific end-to-end business process, like requisition to receipt. That's basically a process, a business process. And if you take that particular specific process, there was, I mean, in the older days, right? We see a lot of decoupled integrations. I mean, it's difficult to make it as a process, or figuring out the proper analytics and all that stuff was a challenge, right? So I mean, if you see here, I mean, the slide basically talks about, we have one integration between procurement cloud to supply chain, right? Like basically you have an SAP and you have some other application like Infor, and then again you have an integration cloud, I mean integration to bring this data to the financials, right? Which is either Microsoft Dynamics or NetSuite, right? Again you have another integration to basically bring this data to financials, like the financials again, because at the end you need to pay the supplier, right? For the goods we kind of procured, right? And then I mean, the bottom line is we may again need another integration to pass this data to the downstream systems. So again, if you see, there are multiple business processes involved in it, like requisition to the fulfillment to the invoice, and invoice to the payment, and payment to the receipt. So I mean, certainly with this Oracle Integration Cloud, right, you can basically streamline an end-to-end business process, within the Oracle Integration Cloud. Okay, so I mean, these were some of the points I kind of already highlighted, right? About the legacy code, and and it just super complicated, especially when you have a hybrid cloud, like where you have an on-premises and also the cloud setup, and the connectivity is not that easy, because the cloud being available over the browser, the on-premise connectivity is not that easy. It is not available on the internet. You have to be like find a different method to really talk to an on-premise database, or on-premise FTP server for that matter, right? So all that stuff is like pretty like complicated, and more importantly, the integrations we deal doesn't really align with the business process, right? And sometimes we really don't have any clue, like, and this was the biggest challenge, right? Like, think like an on-premise setup where you have like a handful of or 10 integrations, and we never have any proper visibility. It's only that, okay, now today my integration failed. If the integration is designed in such a way to receive a notification, we receive a notification. Otherwise, until unless the business user highlights that, hey, look, my POS are not syncing from Ariba system. Hey, look, my employee information is not syncing from the workday system. Until someone really, highlights that, like a big business program as a P1 or a P2 issue, basically we don't have a visibility in the on-premise world, right? Like, or probably I mean, probably as a part of best standards, coding practices, people might have, the developers might have added some notifications, but again, it's all reaching out, but we don't have a holistic view of the successful integrations versus failed integrations. How many times an integration got failed, why it got failed. We never have that observability, a standard. When I say we never have, probably some companies might implemented, invested, building a custom solution. That's a different story. But I'm talking about, I'm generalizing it, like there was no standard way, right? There was no out of the box way, even if I talk about EBS world, right? So I mean, so those are the challenges, which something Oracle certainly, Oracle integration certainly solves. One important thing I want to highlight is Oracle Integration Cloud is purely a declarative platform. Okay, I don't say I mean, it's certainly a zero code or a no code platform, you can pretty much develop super complicated integrations without writing a single piece of code. But at the same time, in the recent Gen 3, and even we used to have it in the Gen 2 also, but it doesn't mean that you can still write some complex XSLT code, for a complex mapping use cases. Okay. I mean, again, like, it doesn't really sweat a lot to uh, connect to various different application landscapes. Like, connecting to the cloud is easy these days, right? And you can connect to your Gmail services, G Drive, or any storage services easily, right? Whereas connecting to, an on-premise FTP server is little tricky, right? Oracle Integration Cloud, uh, helps us here, not really need to sweat a lot, like, in general, right? I think in a normal scenario, if you need to connect to an on-premise, application, be it a database or an FTP server, one have to go through a lot of specific process. For example, I'm sure if anyone from the EBS background can relate this, it is not just a developer alone job. They need to talk to DBAs, and DBAs need to talk to firewall team, and then they need to open a port and do a lot of stuff in order to allow that connection outside to the internet, because your application is sitting in the cloud and you want to talk to an application which is behind the firewall. Now here, right, the connectivity aspects, it's super simplified. Believe me, you just really don't need any firewall team, networking team, and all that. You can simply, certainly we need a DBA help here, because they are the one, it's they are, because the kind of setups we need to do to make such connections successful, uh, there are certain scripts to be executed. That's something a developer will not have a privilege to, though we are the guiding force. But generally a developer, a DBA can execute such kind of use cases, right? Another important thing is, uh, I'll tell you, important feature, right? So now you think like this, right? You take any application in the world, there are uh, three important elements or three important functionalities every application will cover. Okay. So, for example, uh, let's take a, uh, let's take any application, let's take Amazon. Okay. Forget about what it is like offering and all. My angle is little different here. Think from an IT standpoint, right? When you build any application, right, the application obviously need a way to inbound the data, right? At the same time, a way to outbound, right? Like, taking the data out of it. That means you definitely need this inbound and outbound will be taken care by an integration platform, right? Or an integration basically. But other than that, an application also needs what we call processes. So basically approval. So you take any application, even if it's a custom application, something which you guys are building, right? Most likely that there are high chances there is a business process which needs certain approval mechanism. Okay. So let's say if I'm building a what we call expense app, or a travel approval app, right? Like, before I mean go and book my tickets, right, I need to raise certain approvals in the system. I need to first submit my travel request, so excuse me, so that it will go to the certain approvals, right? Similarly, if you take an Amazon, right, so probably think from a backend standpoint, right? Amazon as an application, first of all, it will onboard a lot of suppliers, right? Because every supplier have their own product listing, right? Think like a Samsung or an Apple, or or any other vendor, right? Obviously, Amazon have to provide a form or a page to onboard themselves, right? I mean, self-service application kind of a thing. But once that is done, obviously Amazon also should have certain approval mechanism in place, right? Because they can't just simply onboard everyone. They have their standards, thresholds, certain expectations, and many, many more, right? Certain approvals, compliances in terms of what kind of a supplier, depending on what kind of products they are selling, right? So definitely they need a very strong approval mechanism, right? And to approve their product catalog, to approve them as a company to onboard and sell products on Amazon, right? And then another thing is it's pretty common that they may need a lot of custom development page use cases, right? So I mean, see, the bottom line is what I'm trying to is if you take any of the ERP systems like, SAP or even, NetSuite, Microsoft Dynamics, or, what we call Oracle Fusion for that matter, right? These are all SaaS offerings. And you take any application, these are the common needs. They need to have an ability to build their own custom pages. They need to have an ability to do integrate with the other third-party systems. They should have an ability to do the process part of it. So if you see, right, uh, I mean, basically the Oracle Integration Cloud solves this crucial, gap, because many middleware platforms are missing this piece. I mean, now you may ask, Satya, look, you're talking about process and approvals. In EBS, we have already workflows, right? Similarly, in the Oracle Fusion also, we have workflows. Why you are talking about some other approval mechanism, to be, incorporated? The reason being, yes, you are absolutely right. That's what your question is. You're absolutely right. Every system have their own approval mechanism. But the challenge comes is none of these systems, right? They cannot live without having extensions, right? Because uh, any of the software vendor you opt for, the SaaS vendor, they are giving an out of the box products to you, right? They are giving an out of the box products to you, which can customize to an extent, but most SaaS vendors doesn't give you an ability to build the extensions. Even they give you an ability to build the extensions, right? Your out of the box approval workflows cannot be work with such custom process, custom pages, custom forms. Understand? So this is the challenge. That's why Oracle Integration Cloud has three unique offerings. One is Integration Cloud, one is Process Cloud, which takes care of incorporating the process mechanism, and then last is Visual Builder Cloud, which is incorporating of or creating a custom application. I'll take an example here with a nice use case for you guys. Okay, just a sec. Okay, so yeah, I'll take an example here. See this. So I hope now you guys understood that Oracle integration basically offers, integration cloud, right? And then process cloud, right? And then there is something like B2B, which is like, uh, you know, uh, I hope you heard this is an EDI, business to business we call B2B, and then we have something like Visual VBCS. Visual Builder Cloud Service. So it's a combination of, depending on the type of license, you are going to get these different offerings in the in an enterprise edition. You basically get all these offerings. If it's a standard edition, you're only going to get Integration Cloud, Visual Builder Cloud. I'll talk about them in a minute. But so now, I mean, before I give you a use case which covers all of this, right? Let me also talk a little bit about B2B. See, B2B is not a new terminology. Anyone from even on-prem background, right? I mean, if anyone dealt with this EDI, electronic data exchange. If anyone heard of this, right? The older, this is a standard way of transmitting or exchanging some standard business documents like purchase orders, invoices, shipping notifications, right? All these kind of business documents can be transmitted using a protocol called EDI. It was an older way of, even to the very day, it's very powerful, robust and secure. That's why even in the modern world it is still living. But generally, right, the heavy manufacturing companies, they heavily rely on B2B. Okay, because these EDA formats are standard formats depending on type of data you are transmitting. For example, you may also heard about something like AS2, which is like, again, in order to transmit the sensitive data over the internet, right? You will choose this basically. I mean, if you are dealing with what we call healthcare related data, right? We have something like, X12. There are different formats basically. So Oracle Integration Cloud have this B2B future where you can basically define different type of EDI or AS2, or X12, EDIFACT, XML, various different formats depending on the industry you are in, basically. Okay, so I mean, think like this, right? Let's say one classic example is when I talk about sensitive information, your medical claims. Medical claims, if you are a vendor who deals with healthcare related services, right? They are by default considered sensitive because the patient history, the disease, and the treatment they carried over, it just cannot be, public. Or when I say public, like it can't be just dealt with a normal integration. It has to be a healthcare edition because healthcare industry is heavily guarded by a lot of certifications. I mean, you can't just, without having certain certifications, you can't just deal with those integrations. One such certification is HIPAA. So I mean, the point is, you have to be compliant in order to deal with such kind of data. So if you're building the integrations using a platform, the platform has to be compliant. Understand? So this HIPAA or GDPR, you might have heard GDPR, right? Like that's one of the rule, one of the Europeans, data security rule, data integrity, confidentiality, right? So the bottom line is, uh, in a simple terms, your B2Ps basically facilitate a reliable electronic data exchange between the different business partners in a secure and compliant way. That's also one of the offering. But now, you know, I know you may get a little high level because we understood the integration cloud well, but the rest of the elements are something I strongly believe best explained with an example, which now I'm getting into. Okay. So after that, you will be able to form a very good understanding of what we call of this particular offerings. Okay. So I'll try to take something generic so that everyone understands. Okay. Um, let's take uh, a use case called advanced multi-system workflow involving external systems. Okay, so let's say I have a you know global manufacturing company. So I mean, let's say there is a company like this. One common requirement is, right, they need to automate the vendor onboarding process, because see, many companies you deal with, right, they take a lot of services from various different vendors, right? So they can't just do the onboard them just like that. There are a lot of processes which are involved in onboarding a vendor. So if I talk about right, so I mean, if I talk like generally to automate this. a vendor onboarding process, right? We'll talk about what typical steps, what basically which it involves. First of all, uh, why do we need a vendor onboarding process? In any of the, let's take Oracle Fusion as an example. In the Oracle SCM, right? Uh, Suppliers are nothing but vendors will be created. But before you even create them, because why do we create the supplier? Because we are going to procure goods from them. Let's say I wanted to onboard a Lenovo as my supplier, which means I, I am most likely that my employees going to get the laptops from the Lenovo vendor or a Dell vendor for that matter, right? So how do I choose that I will be going with Lenovo or Dell or some local vendor? Forget about pricing and all. Okay, it's not that Lenovo is going to give me a cheap laptops, then Dell. That's not the equation here. There is a whole procurement team. They have a certain compliance requirements to ensure before you onboard any vendor. Not only that, let's take one of you in this call started a consultancy company, okay, which generally provide various different services. Now I have TCS, I have Wipro, I have Infosys. Now someone started, say, tech systems. Let's say, Dhananjaya started the tech systems. So now let's say me as a company, even the TCS vendor, I mean TCS, Wipro, everyone is bidding. Similarly, the tech systems also bidding. But I mean, how will I choose? It just not just Dhananjay is offering me, a less price and less dollar rate. That's not the case. But that's a different game altogether. So how do I choose that the tech system is compliant? So the whole point is these before we onboard any system, right? There will be a lot of background checks to be done, like third party security assessment, DP, and all that. That means one way, think like a normal way when we don't have this kind of a setup of Oracle Integration Cloud. What anyone will do is okay. Procurement team first try to onboard that. They collect a lot of information there, compliance certifications, that and all from the vendor. I mean, from that particular vendor, and then they are going to send that information to their background checks company, third party company, and then it's all happening in the emails and a lot of delays and follow ups and nothing is automated. Now, basically, you could think of these kind of things, right? Uh, you know using these tools. I'll map these tools to this particular process, right? You wanted to onboard basically, right? This once the second step is once, let's say, you can think of a self-service kind of an application, right? So most likely a web page, right? Where you let's say a tech systems owned by Dhananjaya wanted to onboard themselves as a vendor, right? Certainly one of your procurement team can simply send a URL. Hey, use this URL, enter all your information and submit, right? So now this is where the point is, this can be achieved. This is a custom requirement. We don't have this out of the box in the Oracle Fusion Cloud. You're getting my point? So this can be achieved using VBCS. We can build a lightweight, super fast web applications using Visual Builder Cloud Service. Now, after uh, the concerned authority from the tech systems enter the information, obviously I just can't simply onboard them, right? I need to enforce a approval, multi-level approval mechanism, right? So I wanted to do approvals. So basically, I can basically configure once an onboarding request submits, it has to go to some we have like level one, level two kind of a people you can set up, and then they will review and they will approve, understand, or they will reject, or they will ask for more information. It could be anything, right? Let's assume that they looked at that information and then they kind of approved, right? They kind of reviewed and approved. Now, this is where this part of uh, sending the approvals, giving them an option to review or seeking for more information is something can be taken care by PCS, Process Cloud Service. Understand? And then lastly, right now, once it is approved, right, the next step, what you wanted to do is you wanted to send this all the vendor information to TPSA. TPSA means third party, assessment, third party security assessment. So let's say you kind of linked with a vendor who does third party background verification for your vendor services, right? You can simply you need to send this information to this third party vendor, right? So now you can basically leverage the OIC integrations here. So basically integration. So what happens is the moment you submit, you approve this in the PCS, automatically you can design your business process or the end-to-end process in such a way that it will invoke an Oracle integration, which will send the information to the TPSA. And TPSA guys will receive it probably in a file or a notification, doesn't matter depending on how you want to design. They will act on it, right? So now they will act on it, and probably again for the TPSA vendor to submit their report, right? So obviously they may need some space. So again, whatever the onboarding application you have created, you can have a separate web page, to have, right, report TPSA assessment, right? So you can again have a self-service kind of a page, and it can be a web page, can be dealt with the VB, created with the VBCS, right? So this TPS, a third party guy, logs into this, and against this particular vendor original submission request, they can update, hey, this is my TPSA assessment, go ahead and look. And that we can make sure that that can be only available to the procurement team so that they can review, and they can finally say that it is approved, or final approval, right? So something like that. So once now the next step is, right, procurement assessment, right? And then they take a call, let's say approve. And then again, this final approval can be taken care in the PCS, right? And these reviews can be happen in the VBCS, right? Because that's where they open the login and open, right? And then finally you can create, and the moment it got approved, you can create an integration, create the supplier record in the Oracle procurement. See, so that means automatically this can be taken care by integration. So look at this, right? In this entire complex process, all these individual elements kind of come together, and then created basically we kind of created the automated end-to-end process, starting from vendor registration, to a third-party compliance check, and the document verification, your approval workflow, and finally the vendor activation. And you can also send the onboarding communication mail to the vendor. So all this aspects has been taken care by the by leveraging various different offerings in the Oracle integration cloud. Okay, so I'll take a pause here. Anyone have any questions? Okay, so this is what, like, we just kind of concluded. This slide basically talks about I mean, Oracle Integration Cloud basically brings together all the capabilities, like your application integration, your process automation, and your visual builder, and even analytics into a single unified cloud service. Okay, right? And uh, one more important thing I wanted to highlight is, right, like, uh, compared to your on-premise way of doing things, right? By leveraging the Oracle Integration Cloud, your ability to quickly go to the market increases. When I say quickly go to the market, it's not that you're basically selling something in the marketplace. It's more like in the sense that from a project standpoint, uh, your development timelines are drastically, reduced. Okay, because you're simplifying a lot of complexity, right? So that's why, because it's all user based, and you don't need to sweat a lot about what we call uh, the connections and things like that. The connection, making a connection is easy, and then uh, you can do kind of a click and point, drag and drop kind of an experience, right? And more importantly, you have 100 plus pre-built adapters, right? So I mean, let's understand what exactly is this adapter means, right? So anyone have any idea on this call what exactly this adapter means?
Basically, it's like I would say it's a not a tool. It's a predefined program that can connect to a different system.
Yeah, that's right, Bala. To the point. So I mean, in a simple terms, right? Like, uh, Oracle partners with a lot of third-party systems to build these adapters and made available to the customer so that they can simply leverage them to connect to that particular service. Okay, I'll take an example. Like, being like, let's say I want to connect to the Workday system. Do I need to figure out, hey, which web service, what options, how should I connect, and all that? No. Simply go and choose the Workday adapter, and that will open up a very clear instructions for you. Hey, I need a URL or whatever the terminology they use. I need an authentication protocol. I need some scopes to be defined. Right? Let's take, hey, as a company recruiter, HR recruiter, I mean, like they have a business use case. Whatever the new openings they are, the requisitions are opening for the openings, they need to automatically post to LinkedIn. Now, like, how do I do this? I need to find out what APIs the LinkedIn is offering to do this automation. Nothing. You just go and find out the LinkedIn, take out the LinkedIn adapter, and then configure with your account credentials and done. And whatever it asks for, probably sometimes you also need to do certain setups on the on the third party system side also, right? And in their developer console, because the third party system also should know that you guys are establishing a connection like this with them, right? So let's say I want to create an automated ticket in the service now. Same steps repeated. You take, so when I mean, 100 plus pre-built adapters. I'm going to show this in an application in a while. But you basically have a lot of um, what we call pre-built adapters, which makes our life easy. In case if you don't find an application specific adapter, let's say you have a requirement where you need to talk to a vendor, okay, where you don't find a adapter. How do you do that? Okay, in such case, basically you can opt for there are various different type of adapters. One is, let's say, your application specific adapters, right? And then you have technology adapters, right? So application means basically SAP, Gmail, right? service now, etc. Right? Technology adapters means we have REST, SOAP, those kind of things. Because imagine in the absence of this, you can use this. Because any software, any vendor you talk to, right? Until unless that's a, even if it is a startup vendor, I mean, they 100% they will have a protocol to communicate with them, and there are 99% of the time they have an option with the web services. Probably if it's a small company, it's a new company, Oracle doesn't have any collaborations with them. Okay, and then what we call Oracle doesn't have any collaboration with them, and we don't have an adapter in place, right? So the option is like you can certainly choose the technology adapter and go. You even like have I mean in this application, right? Not only this, you can even have DB adapters, ATP adapters, right? Even like you have what we call FTP adapters here, like so all that will come basically. Okay. So if you want to connect to a FTP server, you can leverage the FTP server and FTP adapter, right? So you can basically use those and then make the respective connections. Understand? So I mean, from a deployment is super easy here. Like, everything is nicely packaged into package files, project files, or individual integration files. So deployment and maintenance is like, really easy, right? Now, let's get into a little more depth of what kind of integrations we create. Okay, so we basically have three type of integrations we create, and any type of integration you could think of in the world will definitely come and fit in these three types. Understand? Anywhere you go. So when we talk about application integration, right? In a simple terms, whatever the integration you create using this application type, which means this integration is going to be triggered by a third party system. Understand? Okay. So obviously, right, you don't create integrations always to self-invoke, run on their own kind of a thing, right? There is always a trigger point, right? Who is triggering that? Right? So I'll take an example. Uh, you take the e-commerce example, which I said yesterday, the take Amazon example. You are going to the shopping cart, adding your, you're choosing your products, adding your products into the shopping cart, and making a payment and placing an order, right? So you're doing two things there. You're placing an order and you're also doing a prepaid payment, right? That is a e-commerce system. There will be a ERP system behind the screen. So obviously you need an integration, which has to be embedded to that submit order button or payment confirmation button, right? To, to trigger an integration behind the screens, which will take these order details into the order management system, right? At the same time, it has to also take your invoice information and also the billing information because you paid it already to the billing system and account receivable system. That means AR receipts and AR invoices has to be also created in parallel to your order placing request. How do you think that this is happening? So behind those screens, an application type integration must be invoked. That means when we create an application type integration, this is going to give you a REST URL or a SOAP URL, and that URL will be integrated or configured for that into that button click or that particular event submission right there. And then automatically internally, this will trigger your integration and do the job of creating the orders, creating the invoices, creating the receipts. Understand? So that's one classic example of application type integration. Okay. Now another type is schedule integration. And this is a self-explanatory. I'm sure many people might have know about this. Schedule means it's a recurring based on a frequency. Daily, I wanted to run at certain time. Weekly, I wanted to run at certain time. Right? It could be a report I wanted to run, right? And then send it to some third-party system, send or insert data into the database, right? It could be anything. So the schedule is like, helps you to, that means this integration is triggered by the schedule within the OIC. Understand? And then lastly, and most important one is event-based integration. What does this mean? Anyone have any idea about these event-based integrations?
Yeah, so basically, it basically is like based on an event, you start triggering an integration. Integration receives and listens into that, and it starts the integration
Executing it.
processing. Yeah, executing.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, if I translate that into a business use case, right? It works like this. Okay. Let's take an example of Salesforce, right? Uh, what I wanted to do is I have a requirement. Let's say for our company we are working for, let's say there is a Salesforce ecosystem for the CRM, and there is Oracle Cloud for the SCM and financials, right? Now, whenever there is a customer and account information gets created in the Salesforce, right? I want to automatically create them in my ERP system also. Okay, I wanted this to be real time. I don't wanted any batch mode. Later I'll file a report. Later I'll go and fetch the data. No, I want to do it real time. So how can I do that? Obviously, Salesforce have the option to raise the business events whenever a certain business process gets triggered or created. So you can configure the Salesforce system in such a way to raise the events. Whenever a customer is created and approved, raise an event. And now I will create an integration to subscribe to that event, basically. So the terminology we use is we subscribe. Your target system raises an event, you keep subscribing to that event, and the moment such event got raised, immediately your integration subscribes to this and then publishes. You are subscribing. Your integration is your event-based integration is subscribing. Good. But what it should do with the data it got from the target system source system, it should publish to the target system. It could be a database, it could be a file server, it could be an object storage, it could be altogether different third-party system. Right? You take another example. I'll give you another example. Let's assume that you need to send your AP invoice information to a third-party system. Same, in Oracle Fusion, we have options to raise the business events, and you can create your OIC integration to subscribe to that business event, process that invoice details downstream. Okay, so in a nutshell, this is what is like going to be, right? So Yeah, this is how your PCS looks like, whereas different quick starters available, sample workflows, loan application, and one more point I forgot to mention is using the process application, right? You can even it will help you create the simple forms. You see the Google Forms, right? These days people keep giving you to fill some quick data like that. You can basically create a lot of forms. Okay. Um, like I explained earlier, the Visual Builder is something, helps you to quickly create the web applications, drag and drop. I don't say it's a no code platform, but people have to use a lot of, coding like Groovy scripting or, the JavaScript, because it works on a JavaScript framework called OZ, okay, Oracle Z. you know JavaScript is run on Jet framework, right? That's an open source one, but it's like Oracle's proprietary is like Oracle's flavor of Jet is OJet. So uh, anyone who is accustomed with the JavaScript, they can very much excel in this you know VBCS world. Okay, it looks the UI looks pretty simple, fast, and it will compete with any of the other modern web or mobile development platforms available out there. It's super fast, you have all options to do drag and drop and create action chains and so on and so forth. Okay, so these flavors, I'll show you a different slide which I have got with some recent changes. So basically, yeah. So Oracle integration have different editions. We have a standard edition, enterprise edition, and healthcare edition. This is a new edition which got introduced in the generation Gen 3, right? So this clearly gives you a differentiation. If it is a standard, right, you will get the integration, Visual Builder, and all the standard adapters, but you're not going to get the enterprise grade adapters. The process automation will not be there. B2B will not be there. And we'll certainly get the file server and recipes we are going to get. I'll talk about these recipes and accelerators in a minute. And then robot process automation. This is a new feature which got introduced where you can also do a RPA from the uh, integration cloud, right? The healthcare related adapters and messages are not supported, right? Because if your customer is a healthcare customer, they have to by default take the highest edition, which is the healthcare edition, okay, which is basically gets everything into it, okay. Whereas enterprise edition is what most customers will take, where you are basically going to get everything except the healthcare related. So if the customer is not processing any healthcare information, or they are not into health industry, certainly the best bet is to take the enterprise edition. Okay. Now, so I'll just open up for a quick Q&A before I get into the UI and show you. I have two topics left. Basically, I want to give you a quick overview of the application. And then I wanted to quickly walk you through on the course content before I conclude the session, right? So, but before that, I would like to quickly open for any questions anyone have.
Yeah, sure. So, question on VBCS actually. So, VBCS, I see there is a component that's also coming as part of SAS. So, and we see that as a component in OIC. So, how different is both? Like, any idea or any light on that?
Yeah, so good question, Bala. On the SaaS, right, Bala, you must be hearing this from the HCM side of it.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, because out of all the products, right, like the
Mm-hmm.
financials cloud, SCM cloud, HCM cloud,
Mm-hmm.
HCM cloud is evolving fast, and there
Mm-hmm.
is this very strong adaptation, of the HCM cloud compared to other clouds.
Okay.
Because in the market, right,
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you the mechanics before I answer your question. See, in
Mm-hmm.
the market, the leaders in the HCM space is Workday for
Workday.
quite a
Yeah.
long time, quite a
Yes.
long time, and then followed by SAP's success factors.
Correct.
You go anywhere, you most likely to hit on either of the systems. Of
Correct.
course, there is a decent share of EBS HCM. Okay. So
Mm,
now the point is success factors being little redundant these days,
mm,
not having a cloud offerings and not robust enough to accommodate the modern HCM solutions. And
mm-hmm,
Workday being leader, certainly expensive. And the best other alternative, which is equally or in fact getting quite a lot of modern solutions and offerings, is from the Oracle HCM Cloud.
mm-hmm,
Okay, despite Oracle HCM Cloud shares the same uh, technology platform as ADF with the Financial Cloud and SCM Cloud,
mm-hmm,
HCM Cloud have a lot more customization options, lot more
mm.
personalization options. That brings to your question of extending the HCM Cloud using
SaaS
the
pages.
Visual
Okay.
Builder Studio. There,
Mm-hmm.
there is a difference. This
Got
one
it.
I'm talking here is a
Mm.
standalone Visual Builder cloud service which can be leveraged to build extensions to any of the cloud like HCM cloud, SCM cloud, and financials cloud. When I say extension, right, that means this extension will not live on the SaaS. It will co-live with the SaaS. It is
Got it.
separately hosted on the VBCS, but it
Mm.
can very much embed into the SaaS. You can launch this extension from your SaaS pages, those kind of things,
Mm-hmm.
right?
So that.
Whereas there is
Mm-hmm.
another concept, another offering called Visual Builder Studio. In fact,
Mm.
recently I've heard that I've seen some of the companies are even implementing the Redwood,
Correct.
applications on the HCM cloud, especially they are upgrading some of the pages using the
Mm.
Redwood. In fact, the UI look and feel, everything remains same. It is just that it's little more enhanced, and it's 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 just that to accommodate and not to lose that market share, Oracle is doing that, additional focus on that product development exclusively to the
Got it.
HCM cloud. Okay,
Mm.
that's the main
Mm.
difference. The fundamentals remain same, in terms
Mm.
of building, but it is they are trying to make it as a native application to the SaaS rather than
Got
looking
it.
at as an outside entity.
Got it. So in a way, can I tell I can extend or customize few pages on SaaS, but I cannot build a brand new page using the product that comes by SaaS HCM. Is that a true
Exactly. See,
statement?
out of the box, the SaaS HCM doesn't offer. See, we have something like Application Composer Bala,
Mm-hmm.
in
Yes.
the entire SaaS, right? But that is
Mm-hmm.
a, sorry for using this, but that's a pathetic product, like the pathetic
Mm.
offering. I mean, just
Mm.
of because it's super slow.
Mm.
You go anywhere, you even try yourself if you have the SaaS access, it's just super slow. I
Okay.
mean, they kind of tried, but it even Oracle doesn't recommend until unless you are run out of all options.
Mm.
Now that's where this Visual Builder Cloud service is coming into the rescue, because especially for the HCM space,
Mm-hmm.
where it certainly offers quite a lot of options to extend your existing page to incorporate new elements and
Mm.
do all that stuff. And in fact, that
Mm.
VBCS, the Visual Builder Cloud Service also, sorry, Cloud Service Studio also offers a by default DevOps suite to deploy,
Okay.
maintain, manage.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this standalone VBCS doesn't come with that VBCS suite of products.
Okay.
I mean, when I say DevOps options, you have to
Mm-hmm.
manage all your DevOps separately, eh, outside of this, basically.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one more question. I'm basically from EBS and SOA background, trying to shift to in this
Mhm.
space actually.
Mhm.
So one question about OIC is in SOA we normally save credentials and things like that in service account, mostly on the OSB
Mhm.
side. service bus.
Mm-hmm.
So assume I want to consume a third-party REST API. I just give the endpoint in the service bus and I store the credentials and all in service account. And if the vendor at some point he changes the credentials, I just have access to the service account. I can just go in and change it without changing any code.
Mm.
So how are we maintaining that in OIC? Like,
Simple. We no need to really change with the design itself. It is natively when
hmm,
you develop an integration, right?
hmm,
Your connection entity is separate and your integration entity is separate, first of all.
correct, correct.
Before you initiate an integration, you must have a
Hmm,
connection established.
connection, correct. Hmm,
Right now, to your point of changing a password in the future by the vendor, all you need to do is to
just
configure your new
change
password
config
in
connection
the
in the
connection level
connection.
and activate. See, the beauty is when you change the connection and test your connection, Oracle
Mm-hmm,
will prompt you and it will automatically takes care of reactivating your integration. You don't need to
mm-hmm,
change anything. It just reactivates it. It deactivate and
mm.
reactivate. And the new password changes will reflect. Whenever the integration runs in the runtime, it will always refer to your new credentials.
But will the password be visible in the connection?
No, no, no.
Okay.
Yeah, for the first time it will visible. When
Mm-hmm.
after it's saved, right, it will show you an encrypted value.
Okay. That's good in a way then. Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
Okay. So apart
Okay.
from that, there is no way to store in a kind of a placeholder and refer from there, or just it's just in the connection itself.
Yeah, most likely connection. There are certain advanced offerings in the OCI. There is a data guard or something. I don't remember the offering exactly. Or the
Mm-hmm.
vault, not data guard, vault.
Vault. Okay.
There is an
Mm-hmm.
offering called vault in the OCI, not
Mm-hmm.
in the OIC. But again, in the Oracle cloud infrastructure, there is something like vault that's
Mm-hmm.
exclusively to store the credentials. But how can I access that in the integration is
Yeah.
a question of,
Yeah. You need to be able to
you
read
know,
it from OIC.
yeah, it is a definitely will be it will be a possibility because when it is an offering in the OCI,
Mm,
you
mm,
also have accessibility of the data using REST APIs. You're
correct.
getting my point. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the moment you have that accessibility, it is very much
Mm,
possible getting that in the integration. It's a question of since I did not do it right, I cannot confidently say that, but
mm-hmm,
definitely that will be a possibility. See,
correct.
what generally we can do is right in the vault. I mean, I can only visualize based on a vault contains application and the credentials, right? So
Mm,
generally, the,
mm,
it's a place to store your 10, 20 different applications and their credentials. And
mm-hmm,
there are vault specific APIs you can invoke in the OIC
mm,
where again it is going to be like a connection in the OIC. But instead of configuring that connection with the application specific credentials, you will be configuring with the vault credentials. And
got it.
now, yeah, and now
Mm,
depending on your integration, probably you need to pass that parameters to fetch that credentials at the runtime. And
mm,
we need to figure out ways to decrypt that if it stores originally in an encrypted manner, and then finally pass that information. But if you do this right, we will lose the ability to use an adapter. We have to opt for the REST API or SOAP API approaches because generally with REST or SOAP, we have an
mm,
option to pass the credentials in the headers or some other way, right? So, but yeah, we may lose up big time, the power of leveraging an adapter.
got it. Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you so much,
Yeah, no
Satya.
problem. Yeah.
And most of the course curriculum, is it going to be on the HCM side or financial? I missed your basic introduction. So that's my final question.
Yeah, it's a mix of everything, at least
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow we have another session on the functional side of it. Ravi is going
Mm-hmm.
to clearly talk about the course curriculum on the SaaS side, in a
Mm-hmm.
detail. And I believe it's a mix of everything, like focusing on SCM, financials, and HCM. But I am going to showcase you, on the OIC side of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The content, the whole contents, right? Since we already like talked about it, let me just quickly showcase you that contents so that we can cover that piece. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yeah, on the, to answer your question precisely, like as far as the use case is concerned, right? I'll be taking couple of examples on the financials and then one or two on the SCM and then, one or two on the HCM side of it, from an integration standpoint. But the point is we'll be first covering all the basics and making the basics and fundamentals super solid. Okay, so if you see, right, we'll first start with all the different cloud offerings and OCA. I'll be introducing to the OCA, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, because that's important to know certain things. How do we provision and how do we create users groups and assign with these application roles and all that stuff I'll be covering. And then a little bit about different other middleware platforms you might have heard, right? The Workcat or Delboomi, Mule and all stuff, right? That's something that just a small introductory aspect, because in the Gartner reports, we keep seeing that OIC is topping for the last four quadrants. I mean, last four consecutive years, basically. So that's something we'll be talking about it. And then whatever the course I'm teaching in this entire duration, certainly anyone can get equipped to attempt the platform application integration. I think the new 25 version is on its way, or it's already in the store. I need to cross check, but that's something because we are focusing on very good use cases and all the fundamentals. Certainly anyone can go and give a try for this exam. We'll see how we can create a cloud account, and because if you guys are trying for the first time, we can this cloud account is of very much helpful. You guys can try, and there are certain always free cloud options one can always explore. All right, we'll talk about license types and message packs, because it is extremely important, unlike the on-premise world or even the SOA world, right? Where we don't have the that's the universal credits we take, or the SOA CS license people take, right? But here our design is directly proportional to the billing. If you do a bad design, it's going to hit us bad at a billing level, because the way how OIC works, every node, every step, there is some request response, and it carries out certain KBs of data, like KBs or MBs, depending on how much you are getting, how much you are splitting out from that particular node. So Oracle charges you based on that. So it's a very clever pricing strategy. Okay, it's not based on number of connections, this and that. It's based on your execution. If you run a specific integration 1,000 times, and for each time, if you are taking, say, some 5 MB, 6 MB of data, for all the runs, you can imagine it may hit like, say, some 500 MB or something like that. I mean, Oracle charges, it counts per message. Let's say if it is like 50 KB, it counts as one message. So customers purchases the message packs. The message pack contains 5,000 messages, and that comes with a certain cost. So something like that, we'll talk about them because it's important to know. We'll be talking about all these integrations, recipes and adapters, file servers, a little bit about B2B. We already touched based on these elements like B2B automation. I'll be talking about recipes and adapters and, file servers in great detail. We'll be talking about some differences between Gen 2, Gen 3, because currently in the market we have Gen 3. Pretty much most of the customers are upgraded to Gen 3. It's good to know Gen 2 is are like there for quite some time. It's just, I mean, the look and feel pretty much quite a lot. New additional features also come in. We'll certainly talk about them. And then we'll be talking about not just talking, we'll be also doing hands-on from here on, basically. Till here, probably some theoretical stuff to know and get equipped and comfortable with the terminologies and the landscape. But from here, basically, we'll be creating the connections and see how trigger varies and invoke varies and all that stuff, lookups and adapters and JavaScript libraries, and what are the business identifiers, why they are important. And we'll see how we do the debugging using the activity stream and observability, right? Some admin stuff and knowing all the UI. Okay. And various different integration styles, which we just kind of discussed, right? With the specific use case. And another aspect is like knowing the web services. That's extremely important here. People from the on-premise background, I mean, they're exclusively dealing with the EBS. Certainly, even they're not much accustomed with the web services world. But people who are from SOA background, certainly they are pretty good with the web services. But the concept here is to at least help them, because we don't deal with creating a SOAP or REST web service. We don't care, right? But it's important to know how to consume them. What is a WSDL? What is request payload, response payload? What is an envelope, and what is the structure of your request payload, headers, and all that stuff, right? We'll be talking about them, like introducing to all the RESTful web services, like the pretty basic stuff, good enough to navigate and understand and deal in the OIC world, right? We'll see the workflow of end-to-end process, starting from connections to deploying them. And then from there, we'll start with developing your first SOAP service, like SOAP as a trigger, deal with the uh, abstract WSDL versus, concrete WSDL, preparing them from the scratch, and, do some basic operations, so that, we understand how this whole thing works. Um, I mean, generally, right, heavy, generally people develop heavily by leveraging the REST, from a trigger standpoint, because that's convenient, and most of the companies or third-party systems always wanted to consume a REST service rather than a SOAP service. But there are some legacy systems, they still rely on SOAP services. In that sense, we may use rarely to configure SOAP as a trigger point. That's where, I mean, people from non-SOA backgrounds struggle a bit, but generally people from SOA backgrounds are pretty accustomed with building the, creating the abstract vessels from the concrete vessels, right? So they're all something piece of cake for those, and but the other folks have to, put a little more focus and effort to, deal, because if you don't know XML, don't know all that stuff, it's a little difficult. But I'll try to give you the basics, and good enough basics to, get into that flow. Similarly, we'll be talking about a REST use case, understand the REST adapter limitations, and we'll create a REST as a trigger, and we'll also invoke a REST service, and we'll see how we can map everything as a service, right? And we will talk about various different options, like we have looping. I mean, in the actions, we have various different actions and error handling, the logic and calling the different integrations, and all that things we'll be seeing in the action, like trying to do some hands-on with each of these use case and do it. And the next one is FTP related use cases. One of the most commonly used use case, because for any of the file-based integrations, this FTP plays a crucial role. Reading a file, writing a file, deleting list file operations, performing a search on the CSVs, and getting the latest file from the FTP. We'll certainly see all that in the file-based use cases. Okay, and then we'll be touch basing on the database adapter and then and its use cases. We'll be learning how to incorporate ATP, and we will be using the autonomous transaction processor for the example. We'll see how we can provision on the OCI, and um, see how we can leverage that in the Oracle Integration Cloud. So that we insert the data, we do the get operations, all that stuff. We'll see some schedule related pattern by invoking, some uh, report specific to the sales orders, custom report, and we'll see how we can deal with the schedule parameters and stuff like that. So we'll do some hands-on with the loops, looping through multiple files, and sending attachments, or looping through multiple CSV records, and processing them to the database. And we'll see the global variables in data stitch and some advanced concepts pertaining to the variables. Okay. And then comes to the event-based integrations, where we will be touch basing on, like, creating a subscriber pattern using OIC. And then we'll touch base on ERP cloud adapter. This is where we will see the supplier related use case, and account payable invoice import use case, and BDA use cases we'll be seeing here. right? And then we'll touch base also on the HDL, HCM, like we'll just see the overview and then understand the HDL loader related elements, because it's a vast concept, because HCM has its separate uh, fan base and product offerings. But I'll just ensure, uh, because once we understand it, because most of the HCM integrations happens via HCM data loader, HCM cloud adapter. Uh, so once we understand this, pretty much we should be able to handle any every other HCM integrations. And then we'll see some bulk extraction use case, leveraging the ERP cloud to extract the data in a bulk manner. And we'll see the Salesforce adapter use case. And lastly, we'll see RPA. This is a brand new one. We'll just give an overview and we'll see, depending on the time and constraints, and we'll see if there is a possibility of executing a use case for this. But generally, because there are a lot of other infrastructure setups involved in this particular use case, I need to cross verify if we can provision them to showcase you, but at least I wanted to provide you an overview and the possible use cases with that. Then we'll be entering into versioning, like cloning and migration and all that stuff. We'll also understand on-premise connectivity agents, exception handling, and um, lastly, we'll be also try to understand different OIC native REST services to automate the deployments. Generally, people can do this DevOps implementation using Azure DevOps, by leveraging these OCI REST services to. I'll talk about such use cases. And on the VBCS and PCS, it's most likely covering some basics and building some sample applications is what we are going to cover. Okay. So I mean, again, like on the VBCS also, we'll try to cover all the basics and touch base all the important building blocks, because this foundational knowledge helps us to create any application, any extension. So we'll certainly create a web application. We'll also create a mobile application using that. Okay, I mean that's in short, in a nutshell. We are going to cover in the contents. Okay.
Hey Satya, Sachin
Yeah.
here.
Hi, Sachin. Yeah.
Satya, first question is like you're going to train the SAS technical plus this OIC, right? So how will be balance? I think you mentioned it will be like over the 3 month course, right, on a weekdays.
Uh-huh.
So how will you balancing these two together? Like it will be like you yourself will be doing the both on the same time, or there will be another instructor for the specific to the SAS technical.
Yeah, so Sachin, it's a three-step course basically. But first, it starts with some functional,
Mm-hmm.
which Ravi is going to take care, right? And then once, I mean, because it's important to have some functional foundation also, because knowing the functional, I mean, it's not an extensive functional training course, but certainly the more details will be revealed tomorrow. Not a right person to talk about the functional contents, but Ravi starts with it, and he certainly walks through all the important setup areas and then the procure to pay and order to cash execution, so that you guys will be accustomed with those elements. And once done, the technical elements, some of the technical elements will be handled by him. I'll pick up from the data migration standpoint, like the BDAs and all that. The what we call your BDA process and your BACC. I'll pick up from there. And then once we are all done with that, then I will be jumping into the Oracle. So the last is the Oracle Integration Cloud. So so with the understanding you form on the SAS technical side, certainly we'll be leveraging that knowledge for calling those reports or calling those
Mm-hmm.
web services, or those creating those transactions from the OIC.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
understand, understand.
Yeah. Good.
Understood. That makes sense. The second question is like out of these topics you mentioned in OIC, which are specific to the Gen 3? This
All of them are Gen 3. We are,
all.
if you're seeing my screen, we are not going to talk anything on the Gen 2, except talking some differences between that and this as a theoretical knowledge. but entire session is on Gen 3.
Okay. And the final question is on a Gen 3 recently, you was speaking more about this War 2 or something. I don't know whether that topic was there mentioned here.
See, that's a connection element, Sachin. It's a simple element.
Okay.
See, uh, you have what two leg, three leg, different type of protocols available. Even
Correct.
AWS signatures and OCA signatures. You know
Mhm.
what? So I mean, it's basically same. Like using the Postman, there is a token based and there is a what we call client ID, client secret based, right? I mean, there's no difference even if you the way you I mean how you because these are standard protocols, right? Wherever you go, whatever the application you use, OAuth is OAuth. All right. So I mean, it's totally dependent on what type of application we are configuring. I'll certainly talk about certain use cases, but I need to look for a specific. If you are specifically looking for enabling an OAuth and then configure it with that something, I need to cross check what use case that fits in, because the target application also I need to enable that and then I need to leverage that in the OIC. But I'll be basically showcasing you those all the configuration places and what are all important elements we'll be needing for OAuth, but not specific exactly to uh, how do we configure a three-legged and all is not something we're not going to do the practical about that.
Okay. 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 Thank you.
Okay, so guys, if you see my screen, is my screen visible?
Yeah, Satya.
Yeah. So this is like I logged into Oracle Integration Cloud. So this is the Gen 3. Okay, you can see OIC 3, right? Gen 3. Okay, so it's an enterprise edition we are seeing here. Certainly, it's enabled for only one message pack, considering it is a trial, I mean, a demo kind of an environment, right? So the first and foremost thing what you're seeing here is the landing page where you have options to this. Are you seeing any uh,
Yeah, we are seeing
writing
that.
on the screen?
Yeah.
I don't
I don't
know.
know.
I think something. I think because I find it. Just a second. Of my app. Uh, I don't know.
It's maybe something from the meeting property.
Could be, but I've not used any whiteboard kind of a tool. I thought because my laptop natively allows me to write down things. I thought, but I'm
Because
not.
even if you come out of PPT and going to other place also that is carrying, right?
Right,
It's guessing
right.
definitely it is with the meeting. I think, but should be okay to continue. Sorry. If really there is
Yeah. Okay. I'll just continue. Not sure how does it come, but yeah. Yeah. So basically, right, this is the home page, what we're seeing here. It certainly comes with certain info. Let's talks about the design time information, like my total messages and how many errors and failed activations. If you have any visual applications, it will show up here. If you have any process applications will show up here, right? So one thing people need to, important thing to understand is there is something like recipes and business accelerators, right? You see this is recipe. Like, I mean, Oracle have given some predefined set of recipes and accelerators basically. One can basically make use of them without starting everything from the scratch. Okay, if you see this recipe, right, this is like, Microsoft Azure storage, PostgreSQL sync data. That means Microsoft has a blob storage from that to PostgreSQL, right? If you have a use case falls under this particular scenario, you can certainly make use of this recipe. You see, it synchronizes Microsoft Azure storage. Like basically, it's a cloud storage, like blob storages, like AWS buckets, S4 buckets, right? Similarly, like you have a OCI object storage. Similarly, Azure have a blob storage, where you can put the files and read the files and put this in there. You can basically get this. So this is directly given by Oracle. You can get this and install this in the marketplace, and then once it got installed, I can basically open this integration to it contains all the skeleton of it basically. Now let me just this one, right? I just opened this. You see, I basically got the entire change the view. Yeah, so entire design basically without really starting everything from the scratch. It does give me an accelerator. I can make use of this and do the tweaks and then make it my own basically. It contains all the fault handling elements and mapping to the Azure blob storage and then invoking the PostgreSQL and stuff like that. So accelerators and recipes are something which are really handy for anyone to when they are starting with any of the integrations and project. It is always good idea to first check them if there is anything existing, what we call, and make use of them. Now, another one is business accelerator. The main difference is a recipe is something you take and you own it. Okay, that means you modify and you own it. You do whatever you want. There are no future updates, future proofs, nothing like that. It's just a starter for you to speed up your development. Whereas business accelerator is like given by Oracle, you see this is saying get latest, which means it is subjected to the updates. That means the latest, it can get revised, I mean, based on Oracle's work. So Oracle thinks that an additional functionalities can be added there. It can be like added and then you can always get and make use of it. Okay, that's the main difference. So we can always look for whether an accelerator suits here or a recipe suits here. It's their choice, but it is just that accelerators are something you just configure. You can't add new elements, you just configure. Okay, but you can't add new elements, but it keeps on enhancing based on Oracle releases. Okay, but whereas recipe is something you can do whatever you want, and then make it your own and continue with it. Right. So and another element is projects. This is a new feature came in the Gen 3. Where people can create their brand new, because I think Oracle came up with this feature for one major reason. Middleware being a common entity which can be leveraged across multiple projects in the company. So these projects will create a logical separation between the integrations. Understand? That means the integrations in one project cannot be accessed by others. Okay. Of course, the connections can be, shared depending on a property which can be enabled, but it basically separates give a fully logical separation, though they can access, let's say, coming here can be generalized, but even you can have a strict control on a project level, at an access level also, individual user level, group level. Okay, so basically this projects give a unified experience where all the dependent objects related to the projects, like your connections, your libraries, your lookups, your events, everything will be at one place. Okay, and you can basically deploy from here, and you can observe means when an integration runs, you can go and verify their activity stream, everything from here. So in a nutshell, Oracle come up with this new concept called projects, which is pretty convenient and good to use to have a logical separation, right? So, and then the design is the place where you spend a lot of time. Like basically, this is where you create connections. Like, I mean, if you are leveraging projects, of course, you live most of the time in the projects, but outside of the projects, if you plan to develop anything, you come to the design phase. And this is where you build your integrations, you create your connections. So if I go to the connections is always created on top of an adapter. You see, these are all the list of adapters we have. Let me open in a different window. If I click adapters, right, you have 111 adapters so far, right? You can see Adobe Sign, Apache Kafka, Amazon related, and then storage solutions like Box, right? It's not loading further down. You see the Gmail adapter, right? Let's say if I say SAP, there will be a SAP. You see SAP HANA, Commercial Cloud, SAP. When you have adapters, right? Like that, you have Service, Oracle Service Cloud, Service Now. So, I mean, you name it, you most likely going to hit an adapter, predefined adapter for your configurations. Okay. And then next, right, like you can also see the rest, like the technology adapters, right? REST adapter, SOAP adapter for generic connections. So before you make a connection, it always dependent on a adapter basically. Okay. Lookups is like the same definition goes. You can certainly maintain lookups to store the notifications or any business process related mappings. Certainly you can use that. Libraries are something, I mean, an interesting feature. There is any advanced use case where you think that integration, it could be a transformation, most likely. You think that it's not possible or it's too difficult to do it. You can basically create a JavaScript library function and load it here. And that function can be leveraged in the Oracle integration. And then obviously, if you design the integration, for example, you take a specific date format to be uh, it will take one format and it want to give you another one, or you wanted to get the uh, days of a week, or you can think of anything, because it's a library, JavaScript library, you can basically fit in any library, I mean any use case, and do it. You want to do multi-level transformation logic, anything you think, you can do that. Okay. Packages are not really, because of the projects, I would say packages doesn't really hold any significance. But since it is there in a simple terms, people create packages, right? And to logically group them, like HCM packages, like basically package contains your integrations in a simple sense. You see, this package BMOIC have, sorry, BNK have 5 integrations. Sorry, 3 integrations, right? So like that, packages are logical grouping, but I mean, I believe this is slowly going to get deprecated. That's my assumption. But this have a lot of significance from a CI/CD standpoint in a Gen 2, because since it logically groups your integrations, when you import your package into Git repositories, right? It can hold a logical, because each integration have its own versionings. So logically a package logically groups them and holds them. So from a UI standpoint, it's just a logical separation. There is no other significance. But from a DevOps standpoint, yeah, it certainly plays a good role, because when people checks in the packages into the Git repositories, by leveraging the pipeline logic, be it in Python or some other scripting language, it's easy to parse these packages and find out the latest integration version to push it to the target environment. But now with uh, projects, I think it's going to have a high, I mean, a little different approach. But generally, even now, projects are doing a logical grouping at a project level. So, but that's the high level view. So, agents are something extremely important from a what we call having a connectivity for any on-premise systems. If you want to connect to EBS, you need to install an agent. If you want to connect to an on-premise database, you need to install an agent. So agents are one of the powerful feature which will help you, establish a connection without really opening any firewalls. I mean, it's like basically a jar file which you need to give it to your, and it contains a configuration file. You need to configure with your design time URL and credentials, and that will be handed over to a DB, and those guys has to be installed that jar file in the Linux or Unix machine where that application you wanted to talk to is sitting, right? It's a combination of DBAs and developers. So we don't do anything. We just need to educate them how to configure the file and then give it to them so that they will help us to install. So, I mean, in a nutshell, right? This is what, like, the design contains. The B2B I spoke about, you, right? We are certainly not going to dwell much into it over the course period, but I'll be giving you an overview and use cases, but not really getting much into that, because that generally comes with an enterprise grade or a healthcare grade option. And generally the typical setups with the B2B, right? Like generally most of the companies, they have a separate setups that doesn't really club with integration space. If it's a SOA kind of a setup, yes, it certainly goes alongside the B2B integrations also. But generally in the modern space, you most likely to see the deal with the normal traditional integrations. But I'll be giving you an overview on the B2B concepts. Healthcare, we're not going to touch base because there's not much difference. It's just that a customer is a healthcare customer. Certainly it opens up for us, but otherwise we will not have option to upgrade. I mean, until you upgrade, you won't really get it. Observability is a place where we will be looking at all the runs, like my errors, right? And then activity stream, what went wrong where, right? And then the business identifiers, the subscription details about the events. And it also gives you a very nice dashboard. In fact, this is one of the enhancements compared to the Gen 2, where you are really going to get a lot of critical information about your integration and the tracing levels, the concurrency limits, and how many email services, because see, you can't use left and right the email services. The limit is 10,000 emails, so we'll talk about these limits in detail when we talk about message packs and the integration licenses in a detail. But yeah, basically the observability is a place where you are going to get a lot of visibility into your runtime information. Okay, so, and then you have a visual builder. by basically, like I told, it's an integral part. Using this, you can basically create various different integrations and stuff like that. Okay, lastly, the PCS. So you go back, you basically also have an option. This particular environment is like, we are going to give you an overview on the PCS, because this particular environment is not something enabled, because this is like a specific process. Oh, wow, now we got, yeah. So by leveraging the process space, we can basically build the process applications. You can basically see even allowing, yeah, it's not allowing. Okay. So to basically bring you to the conclusion, right? Like we're really spending a lot of time on dealing with mainly focusing on integrations, and certainly we'll be getting and to know the basics of VBCS and building the uh, uh, visual applications, web and mobile applications as an extensions, right? And then we will also be understanding the overview of PCS Cloud. So with that, I would like to conclude and open up for any more questions if you guys have. Okay, I take that as a no. Tomorrow there is another session, the third session with Ravi is going to take care of it at 7 a.m. tomorrow, where I think you're going to get a very clear picture in terms of the course content, because he is going to cover the functional and the technical I have taken right yesterday is going to cover the overall course contents for both those sessions. And I believe you got a good idea on the OIC specific contents, which I've already showcased to you. Okay. So thank you very much. It's a long call, I know. I appreciate everyone's time staying back and patiently listening to the whole session. Thank you very much
Hi.
for joining in again. And sorry,
Hello.
Dinesh. Yeah.
Yes. Actually, I'm from the functional side. I'm not having any technical background. And
Okay.
so, are we covering basic concepts also? So it will be easy for me.
Yeah, yeah. Everything we start from basic, Dinesh. We don't
Okay.
jump into any complex use cases. It's all, if you see the course structure, we will start with all the basics and build simple integrations, and then we'll adding the complexity on top of it. There will be a close structure and relation in terms of our prior topics to the next subsequent topics. So nothing to worry about it. We'll
Okay.
take care of ensuring that you understand it all well.
Okay. And one more question, that is at the start of the session, you mentioned regarding the AI features. So Oracle is introducing some AI feature currently. So can we customize or build our own if we required any particular scenario?
See, I think the question has a quite broad context, but that's a good question, Dinesh. See, if you see the Oracle's AI's roadmap, right? It is actually implementing at various different levels. So, for example, it is natively trying to embed the AI features on the SaaS layer, first of all, right? Now, when you say, if I want to, recently Oracle come up with a Oracle AI Studio. Using that, basically you can build, you can explore that option. I'm not sure if it's a free offering, or I think it will be a free offering. AI Studio recently, only just a week back, they published it. You can certainly explore that. But from a application integration standpoint, or from a SaaS standpoint, if you ask this question, right?
Mm-hmm.
One
Yes.
common use case of enabling the UI is your digital assistant. This is extensively used in the HCM space. Okay,
Mm.
and to some extent in the financial space also. Oracle have their own offering called digital assistants. That's more like a chatbot. But however, now the chatbots are not, I mean, they're not good if they just do a predefined communicative style. Now the beauty there is that digital assistant can uh, leverage the latest LLMs, or your open APIs. It can internally integrate with them, and one have to learn how to feed our organizational data. I'll tell one use case. What I came across was in one of the architectural discussions was, we plan to implement. We had this Oracle HCM cloud, and they wanted to leverage the Oracle Digital Assistant, but we wanted to feed all the company's information to the digital assistants, because we also wanted to leverage the open APIs LLMs, so that it have a it basically it's a private deployment. It's not that anything of the company's data is going out. The entire open APIs LLMs can be hosted internally, and then Oracle Digital Assistants being on the private cloud, it's also very much secure. And with that combination, there are various different practices where you can feed and train your specific data, be it employee leave related, be it policies related, rewards related, etc., to that system, so that people can get that relevant information on it. That's one thing on the SaaS side of it. The same thing can be done on the financials also, because everything works. So one have to learn first how to feed my own data to a open API, LLMs. That's important. If we know that, applying that knowledge, it's just not with Oracle. You go to Salesforce also, right? If you wanted to incorporate, this is at a generative level. Now, the another thing on the integration side, now in the recent months, there's a lot of booming aspect is agentic AI. Even Oracle is coming up with some roadmap on the agentic AI, because Oracle Integration Cloud is going to be future proof to even handle agentic AI specific use cases. But it's not yet evolved. It's in the roadmap. I'm sure in the coming months or coming releases, we tend to see that. But yeah, uh, before we really try anything, right? The important element for anyone to start is get accustomed with those large language, APIs, and then how do you pass parameters? How do you call them, and how do you train them with your data is what one have to learn. Once one learns that, it's easy to use them in anywhere, in any different application. Okay.
Yes, got it.
Anything else, guys? Okay. Fine, then I appreciate everyone's time, and we'll conclude the session here. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.